February 22nd. Wow, it is the end of February. A lot to talk about on Coffee Talk today. First off, we're going to talk about our local forecast, but I do want you to stick around because we're also going to be discussing the somber anniversary, 25 years since the 1998 tornado outbreak, still today the deadliest tornado outbreak in Florida history. We'll take a look at some of the meteorologics of the day. Of course, that's what we do on Coffee Talk. We kind of do a little bit of that deeper dive. And we'll also look at some of the statistics here 25 years later. I will also have a special report coming up on WESH 2 News later today where I actually look back at all of the destruction of the day and kind of see where we are. And then at 9 o'clock, I will be streaming some of WESH's coverage from the day after. And you're going to see some familiar faces into news coverage. But moreover, what we will notice is Central Florida doing what we do best, which is rallying around each other, which is helping neighbors and picking up the pieces, which was just an unfortunate thing. So all of that to come. But first, we do have a bit of a developing situation in the weather department this morning. There are areas of fog. This is a neat shot, but nevertheless an impactful shot. That's downtown Orlando, and we've got this deck of clouds. Now, the tower cam is high enough that you can see kind of the completely blue sky. I mean, it is stunning on top there. But that said, obviously, yeah, right at the surface, we've got ourselves a little bit of fog to contend with. So that's one of those things to keep in mind. And just within the last few seconds' time, the FAA putting out a notification that flights are starting to have a little bit of delay over at the Orlando International Airport because of low visibility. According to the FAA, these are departure delays due to low visibility, and unfortunately, at least for now, those delays are increasing. One point of note, that fog should be lifting shortly, so that's not going to be a massive issue. Currently, most flights are on time, so if there is a delay, it's just subtleties. There are, though, 10 delayed flights. All right, so that's where we're at in terms of visibility. Let's take a look and see visibility by the numbers. First off, dense fog advisories in effect for just about all of Central Florida. Now, I did the drive this morning to take the kids to school, and I was in that dense fog advisory area the entire time, did not see any fog. So you've got pockets of fog and pockets of no fog. But where we do have the fog, certainly it is impactful. Okay? So let's take a look at the visibilities around Central Florida, and here you go. Notice those lowered numbers: Orlando, Kissimmee, DeLand, Leesburg, even back over to Daytona Beach and Palm Coast and Ocala, half-mile or so visibility there. So these are things we're having to deal with. The good news, though, is that while yes, we do have some fog, what we do not have is any rainfall. Our first warning, live Doppler radar tracking a bunch of garbledygook. Just a bunch of interference in atmospheric condition, the fog, birds, bugs, things like that. But that's it. No rainfall. Okay? All right. Take you outside temperature-wise. It's a comfortable start to the day. 63 degrees in Orlando, 61 degrees New Smyrna Beach. It's 64 in Sanford and 66 in Melbourne. Today will be a day with record heat. Look at these numbers. Okay? 77 by 11 o'clock, that's outstanding. 84 by 1 p.m., 88 degrees by 3 o'clock this afternoon. It is going to be a warm, warm day. Yeah, here's a look around neighborhood by neighborhood, okay? And then we'll get into records here shortly. 86 today in Ocala, 87 in Wildwood, 83 Daytona Beach, 86 Palm Bay, and into the upper 80s around the entire metro area. So that said then, let's talk records, shall we? First, let's get to the records for today. Where do we fall in, okay? I think Orlando at least ties a record, 88. Ooh, wow. Orlando International Airport, by the way, just reporting a ground stop due to low visibility. That escalated quickly. Must be 0-0 right at the airport. I would imagine, though, that this ground stop is a temporary thing and that eventually things will parse out. But again, ground stop in effect for arriving traffic due to the weather, obviously the low visibility. So at least at the moment, they're probably starting to take in all these flights, more than likely. They're starting to put folks into traffic patterns and holds. And because of the low visibility, we had to switch from VFR to IFR operations. So because of that, we're having to kind of hold flights. So for folks heading into Orlando International Airport, that ground stop basically means that for airports around probably the southeastern United States, they're just kind of saying, hold off on taking off for a little bit. We need to safely land the aircraft that are already inbound. And normal sunny day VFR operations are much quicker. You can get many more planes in. When you go IFR, you have to space them out more. You have to confirm everybody is where they are, and it just kind of slows down the operation. So again, just wanting to let you know, ground stop in effect 2 MCO due to low visibility. Okay, back to the big story this afternoon, which is the record heat, before we were so rudely interrupted by Mother Nature. Orlando expecting to tie a record today going back to the 1960s. Sanford, same thing. And I think that we're going to be awful close in Leesburg as well. I don't know that we'll hit it. But we'll get close. And that's just day one. Look where we go tomorrow. You want to talk about record heat? Not only is Orlando expected to get to another record, 90 degrees, which that record was set back in 1962, but look at Sanford, another record. Leesburg, record. Close in Daytona Beach. If Orlando hits 90, it would only be the 4th time in recorded history that we have done so in the month of February. All right? So that'll be interesting. That's the all-time record high temperature for the month of February. So there you go. Good times. Good times. Nice warmth. It doesn't happen often. These kinds of temperatures don't happen often. Normal high temperature doesn't hit 90 degrees until May the 25th. We don't usually get our first 90-degree high temperature until early April. So yeah, no winter for us now, Rosebud. Good morning to you. Bruce, good morning. Nikki, good morning. Carla, how are y'all? All right, so that's where we're at for now. The pattern supporting warm weather for us these next couple of days. The pattern supporting warm weather. Wow, warm weather. So let's just look together for a second. Central Florida's certified most accurate 7-day forecast, and there you go. Today, 88. Tomorrow, 90, staying in the upper 80s. My pool heater is on, and it's pool season here at the Burris house. So there you go. There you go. All right? Any questions, any comments, any concerns whatsoever? Anything? Is the heat bringing in the wind? With high pressure and control, we're not going to have a ton of wind. Yeah, it's a nice quiet weather pattern. And you can see by Tuesday, maybe a couple of sprinkles. If we look at the forecast models, here's the GFS forecast models. All right. We do have a pattern shift looking into March. Again, it's a raw model data, but there is a pattern shift. We stay warm. And I mean, the model's going ballistically bonkers. Look at that. March the 4th. Do you see that? I don't know that I would say we're going to hit 94, but the model at least is advertising a nice, very warm forecast. So, for what it's worth, my friends, we've got nice, very warm conditions, okay? All right, now, let's talk a little bit about today's anniversary. I shared a link this morning on my social channels, and what I want to do is I want to take you just to the time in your mind, okay? So take a minute. It's February of 1998, all right? Central Florida hasn't had, first off, it's not like longtime residents have been here a very long time. You know, Central Florida before Disney was a pretty desolate place. So what ended up happening on this date, February 22nd / 23rd, 1998, is we had the worst tornado outbreak that Florida had ever seen. And as a matter of fact, through today, it is still the deadliest tornado outbreak in Florida history. Still today. All right, let's look at the numbers. February 22nd through the 23rd, 42 people were killed, 265 injured, thousands of buildings damaged, nearly 1,000 destroyed. There were 7 tornado touchdowns, 3 of which were F3 tornadoes. This was before the enhanced Fujita scale, okay? Incredible. And when you look at the overall scope, there were the tornado tracks. It ended up being 7 tornadoes up to that F3 intensity. Incredible. Now, back to 1998 for a second in your mind. WESH had installed our first warning live Doppler radar, the very same one that we use today. This puppy. We had installed this puppy back in 1996. It was the very first live radar, I believe in Florida, but I definitely know in Central Florida, that was privately owned. It's the exact same radar we have today. We have put in large amounts of money in upgrading it. The thing's, obviously, it's very much state-of-the-art today. It was very much state-of-the-art back then, and this was a situation where we had the ability to track this horrible, horrible event. So what I want to do is I want to take you to WESH's coverage just for a second. I want, at the time, Chief Meteorologist Dave Marsh pictured there on the right, and meteorologist Brad Nitz. And I want you to listen as they go over and just kind of talk about the meteorologics of what had happened in that event. Take a listen.
Now, Dave, Chief Meteorologist Dave Marsh is here, and we've been saying this was the worst weather disaster ever to hit Florida in recorded history.
Well, in terms of tornadoes, yes, of course. Yeah, the hurricanes, we had plenty of those. Right. And this clearly was the most devastating in terms of tornadoes. Strong tornadoes that we don't see down here, and the number of tornadoes, and a little bit too early in the season to have this kind of activity, but obviously we had it. And it was a job tracking it all, but Brad Nitz was here early this morning and having his eye on live Super Doppler 2, and he's got some of the images from this morning to show you. Brad?
Right, through the night, last night, of course, was here and tracking these tornadoes on the ground with Super Doppler 2, and we have 3 of the hardest hit areas that we've saved some images from. This first one here is from Winter Garden at 3:50 yesterday evening, where we saw extensive damage and 1 person was killed. That's in the Winter Garden area. A little further to the north and east, and a little later at 2:30 a.m. in Seminole County there near Sanford and Midway. Some extensive damage there and 11 people killed. And then 20 minutes later at 12:50 a.m. to the south in Osceola County near Kissimmee and just off towards the east near the Turnpike, we were tracking another tornado on the ground. Now we have confirmed 21 deaths in association with the tornado in Osceola County. So we, of course, were here through the night last night and tracking these systems on the ground and trying to give everybody the best information on where the storms were and where they were headed. Right now, though, things have improved dramatically, of course, and we continue with the cleanup as we will continue to do for the next several days. Live Super Doppler 2 across the peninsula right now shows us that things are quiet. We have clearing skies in the forecast through the night tonight and into tomorrow, and no precipitation expected for the next several days. Dave Marsh is standing by in the studio with an explainer about how everything developed yesterday and also a look ahead towards the forecast. Dave?
Thank you, Brad. Yes, we are looking forward to some good weather here, not just for a couple of days as we've had in the past after our storms, but for all of this week. It's looking pretty good into this upcoming weekend, although a little bit chilly, and they give us an opportunity to dry out here and, of course, and to pick up. Overnight tonight, the little bit of cloudiness that we've had today, that's going to go away. It'll be colder and windy for the evening hours, northwest at 15. Of course, that's not as strong as during the daytime. That low in the morning around 49, and again, cold mornings and rather warm, pleasant afternoons expected for the next few days. The combination of factors in our atmosphere to create this problem: strong upper winds, namely the jet stream. You see that running across. This was last night. Low pressure system right here, trailing cold front to the south, warm front to the east, and that allows this strong southerly winds with the moisture to kind of collect along these frontal zones, and with the support of the upper air, that kicks off these squall lines that develop ahead, and of course everything was tracking rather quickly off toward the northeast.
Okay, so that is your severe weather setup in a nutshell, that we are always so concerned with. That was, at the time, Chief Meteorologist Dave Marsh and Meteorologist Brad Nitz. Now, That's it. That was the deadliest tornado outbreak. Now, one thing that struck me, and let me do this if I can go. One thing that struck me, and I'm just going to roll through this video.
Right.
again.
This clearly was the most devastating in terms of tornadoes.
We don't need to listen to the audio, but let me try and scroll through. The one thing that struck, of course, okay, the one thing that struck me is on the radar data itself. Okay, that cell there that moved through the Midway Sanford area. Any of you that have lived in Central Florida a long time will remember. For me, I was a younger guy back then, but I remember the clearing along the 417. I remember driving down the 417 and seeing this massive clearing. Now, what you're seeing on your screen there is about as stereotypical of what we call a hook echo, or as stereotypical of a clean tornado as you can find on radar. Okay? Kenneth is asking, is Brad Nitz still at WSB in Atlanta? He started there in 2006. Yeah, he's their chief meteorologist now, so yeah. Bruce says your station graphics are so much better. It's the same station, Bruce. It's just 25 years apart. So that tornado was very easily seen on Doppler radar there in Seminole County. But one thing that struck me is down here. Now, this is down in Osceola County. Let me tell you something. That is not an easy tornado to spot. That would have been a rain-wrapped tornado. That would not have been one of those you look out the window and see it. That is a very scary kind of tornadic situation there. So if there's one thing, and it's one of those cases that I've studied this, but it was interesting to see the radar data. And I never thought, if I'm honest with you, I never thought to go back and find that radar data to see. The Seminole County tornado, clear as a bell, but man, those others would have been rain-wrapped tornadoes and would have been very difficult to discern. Now, we have, of course, the velocity channel of radar to track. And I'll just show you these. This is not 98, but these would be other examples of. So radar that you see, the rain, the greens and the yellows and the reds, all that. That's rain. Even rain-wrapped tornadoes, though, would show signatures that look like this on the velocity, okay? And you can see those, the yellow and the green, that's winds close together. But it is something to see. It really is something to see. So anyway, today, the anniversary of the 98 tornado outbreak, and I'm going to try and get at 9 o'clock, I'm going to try and get I've got 2 hours of coverage from the day after, and I want to share it with you. Because on a day like today, Nicole says I was in 9th grade in 98. I want to say, Nicole, that I was in 8th grade in 98. I was I was in middle school going into high school, but I recall watching WESH, and I recall watching other stations here in Central Florida. I wasn't working at WESH at the time, so I was flipping around. But I remember the tone Brad Nitz had, recognizing what a real deal it is. And you also have to remember at the time, Florida had been devastated by Hurricane Andrew just a few years before. And we hadn't seen things like this before. Tornadoes, whether you believe or don't believe, whether climate change is a thing, whether this is not a discussion for here. I'm a meteorologist, not a climatologist, but you can clearly show that 98 was kind of a turning point, because prior to, we hadn't had these massive tornado events impacting people. Now, you could also say there just wasn't a ton of people living in Florida. But no matter what avenue you go down, no matter what avenue you look at, we had the 98 tornado outbreak, devastating, with more than 40 lives lost. We had the Groundhog Day 07 tornado outbreak, devastating, more than 20 lives lost. So there have been several of these events. And frankly, remember, we've been in La Nina for years now, which subdues these winter-spring events. But this summer late, we are transitioning into an El Nino pattern. And El Nino is exactly what Dave Marsh was explaining there when he was discussing kind of the jet stream down low. This here, the jet stream, all of the energy in this moment, And Dave's just talking here, of course, but I'm trying. If you'd move out of the way 25 years ago so that I could talk and explain it. But the Jets, okay, he's talking about the forecast, and then I know he moves, and then I'll show it to you. But with El Nino, what happens? We get these storm systems. Okay, all right, move. Okay, pause. Okay, good enough. So in El Nino, what ends up happening, we've had this low and the warm front and the cold front. That happens quite often in this time, okay? But where El Nino really changes things is the jet stream. You get a bunch of wind upstairs. Case in point, the last severe weather event that had moved through, the winds upstairs were running at like 50 knots. Okay, it's a little jet streak. It's a little pickup of wind. In 1998, though, that jet stream was 140 knots. Okay? Now, why is that important? Because the faster the winds are upstairs, it has to pull. It almost gives us pull because it's kind of like after you're on I-4 at a traffic jam, as soon as you get past the accident, the cars start spacing out, right? Well, in the atmosphere, that happens as well, where if there's a bunch of wind upstairs, you can't just have gaps in wind, so it has to get it from somewhere. So it literally pulls air up, okay? It lifts air from the surface up, and that's the case. So I could tell you, come winter, this winter into spring 2024, we're going to have to really watch these cold fronts that move through, all right? So anyway, there's that. I'm going to be efforting that at 9 o'clock. In the meantime, our 7-day forecast, friends, toasty, toasty warm these next couple of days, all right? Join us at 9 o'clock. I'll be trying to stream this video, all right? And I will have reports on WESH 2 through the course of the day today. In the meantime, be the sunshine in someone else's day. Thank you very much for hanging out for Coffee Talk. I'll see y'all later on.